All right. We are back in the studio. There's a bit of a break here. I don't do a ton of podcasts during hunting season, but I did one with Kevin Bolger, who's a badass Wisconsin cross-country ski athlete. He's actually on Team USA, so I made an exception for him. But that was kind of short notice. But here we are back in the studio, and we have Sarah Topp. Sarah, hello.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Heck yeah. So Sarah, you and I met at the unleaded cast and blast up in Michigan this past September. That was Michigan's opener, correct?
No, I think it was after the Woodcock and Grouse opener.
Yeah, that's okay. Yep. So
Before the Woodcock opener, it was
Yep.
after Grouse, though.
That's what it was. It was the Woodcock. Oh, and Ryan Kavanaugh's in the background, so he can chime in with any details he feels is necessary.
Yeah.
Ryan,
everyone.
there you go. So I typically, for the podcast, every fall for the last couple years, I've focused on hunting, fitness, outdoor recreation, that kind of thing. And Sarah, you're going to be, and Ryan, as a as a surprise guest, going to be the first of that series. So with that,
Awesome.
with that series, like I said, it's hunting, outdoor recreation focused, fitness if possible. Some of my hunting and outdoor fitness friends, they all get self-conscious when I talk about the fitness part of it, being that's what I do for a living. And I assure them I don't give a damn other than, their quality of life, and they're happy with where they're at. So that's really all that matters to me at the end of the day. But Sarah, let's dive in. What do you want to talk about first? Hunting,
Oh gosh.
dogs, fitness.
Let's start with dogs. Dogs is a great place.
Perfect. So, like I said, we met at the unleaded cast and blast. You had your dog. I had mine. Ryan had his. Let's take it away from there.
Yeah, and I just want to put a quick plug in there that was hosted by Drew Youngdyke with National Wildlife Federation, just so we don't forget.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to Drew. I forget what episode he was on last, but love that guy. Love what he does.
Yep.
So, Drew, thanks for the invite.
Yeah.
Thank you for the 200 pounds of pasties we all had all weekend. I think I have one left that I've been saving that I need to eat that's in the freezer. I just take it
Don't
out.
save it. Just go for it.
I know. I just take it out and look at it and like, it was such a damn good weekend. So, anyways.
Yeah, so it was awesome that we got to bring our dogs and we got the opportunity to hunt and fish. And I was hoping for a little more grouse action, but was still pretty happy with how the weekend went and just getting the dogs out in the woods for one of the first weekends for the grouse opener. That was good. So I have a now 2-year-old German short hair pointer that I absolutely adore. I did not get her from a branded kennel of any sort. I got her from a couple that had 2 registered German short hair pointers that they bred, of course. She was registered, has papers, everything, and they had a hunting background. And I could not be happier with her. I don't do the NAVDA field trials or anything like that, but I just want a dog that's a companion that can hunt with me, and she has not disappointed this season. Just being a 2-year-old, she really impressed me this season. First year, she was flushing birds all over the place, way ahead of me, ranging too far. And this year, she was perfect. It's great.
Awesome. Did you grow up with hunting dogs?
No, this is my first ever experience with a hunting dog, actually.
Okay. Did you grow up hunting?
I did. I grew up deer hunting primarily.
Okay.
I have my dad to thank for that. He took my siblings and I out ever since we were about 6 years old, maybe even younger than that. Pretty much as soon as we could walk, he took us out, knowing that he probably wasn't going to see anything with 4 toddlers stringing behind him. But, I had the great task of carrying the rattling antlers, so I thought it would be hysterical to hold those up to my head while we were walking.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a great tactic to get some bucks, but not so much.
Yeah, I don't recommend that for anyone.
Yeah, no. Got some good laughs from my dad, though.
Excellent. So did you have dogs at all growing up?
Yeah, so my family's always had dogs. We've had huskies, we've had some labs that were not hunting dogs, but just family dog and some other animals as well in the household. So I knew for sure I was going to have a dog in my life, no matter what.
Fair enough. And what about you from since meeting you and Facebook friends, I see you're involved in CrossFit, working out, getting jacked, throwing around weights. What did sports or fitness or just extra recreation look like for you growing up?
Yeah, so I've always been really active. My family is pretty active as well. My mom thought it was really important to get us engaged in recreating on public lands when we were very little. So we always went hiking and backpacking, um, canoeing and camping trips and stuff like that. And I've always been involved in sports through grade school. So I was on the track team. I did archery in high school. I did track and cross country throughout college as well, and also played rugby for my graduating college at Northern
Damn.
in March. Yeah,
All the sports.
all
So
the sports.
what
And
what
then,
led you to trying CrossFit?
so I felt that my body could not handle running anymore. It was after 12 years of competitive running, it was a kind of taxing on my body, and I just felt exhausted from it. So I was looking for something different. Rugby was a great shift into getting more strength focused workouts in and trying to focus on lifting. So I then took a job in Lansing and lived and worked there for about 4 years and found there was not quite as many opportunities to be outside on public lands and stuff. So I took up CrossFit at that time and absolutely loved it. It really benefited me. I got a lot of strength from that and had great coaches at that facility. Since I moved out to Gaylord, not so much with the CrossFit, but I still really appreciate lifting versus running now.
I like it. So what is it that you do that you're traveling all over the place?
I work for Huron Pines AmeriCorps. Um, I work for a nonprofit called Huron Pines and coordinate their AmeriCorps program. And I've got members placed all over the state doing 10-month terms of service with conservation organizations. So the travel involves checking in with their supervisor and the member and doing evaluations and attending some of their events that they're hosting.
Gotcha. So does that afford you enough time to get out and hunt as much as you want to?
It does. I'm very, very fortunate in that I do have a pretty flexible schedule when I'm not traveling all over the state, that is. So I do get to build in that flexibility and enjoy early afternoons to go hunt grouse and weekends, of course, to go out and get out in the woods.
Nice. I like it. So for you, all these kind of experiences, the fitness aspect of it, the dogs, what pulled you into, or I should say, what keeps you coming back and being a part of BHA?
I got involved with BHA when I was doing my AmeriCorps term of service with this organization that I now coordinate. But I served with Michigan United Conservation Clubs, and I did a program called On the Ground, which is coordinating volunteer projects improving wildlife habitat on public lands in Michigan.
Mm.
Drew Youngdyke actually started that program, and I was fortunate enough to build upon it and continue it for quite a few years after my AmeriCorps service. But I found it really important to be involved with anything public lands, and that's how I heard of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers at the time, and then kind of got to step into this role as being one of their board members. I've really been enjoying that. I've been fortunate to host a couple of pint nights and attend pint nights throughout the state and host a women's weekend, which I really enjoyed and hope to do again. So we introduced several ladies to the basics of fly fishing and wing shooting.
Oh, nice. That
Yeah.
And what was the name of the organization that's a part of again?
That was with Backcountry Hunters and Anglers.
Oh, okay, that was with BHA. We have
Yep.
in Wisconsin, it's called always forget completely the name. Becoming an Outdoor Woman, I think. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, it's a similar style to that event. The DNR was not a partner in this event, which I think they are for that program.
Yeah, usually it's DNR. I think even like the UW system becomes a part of it.
Yeah, they used to host a lot more events in Michigan, but um, they have not hosted as many as they used to.
Hmm. Fair enough. So what you've got deer hunting, you've got grouse hunting now with the dog. What's kind of your favorite? What are some of your favorite memories of hunting or hunting now or hunting growing up, I should say?
Gosh, I definitely have a lot growing up. I mean, the memories with family, with my brother and my dad hunting and going to deer camp, that's unbeatable. But now in my adult life, I think woodcock hunting has become a quick favorite of mine. Just because with my very young GSP, she does great with woodcock hunting. She holds point, she finds scent really easily, and that was her first successful birds were woodcock. So kind of hard to beat those memories at the moment.
For so with your dog, with Timber, how did you go about training her? What did that look like? Did you bring her somewhere? Did you do it all yourself? Was she started?
She was not started. I got her as a puppy at 8 weeks old, brought her home to my home in Lansing. I had some great tips from my friend Brent Chambers that I actually really got into bird hunting with. I met him through one of my on the ground program projects. He was the coordinator for a conservation program with Midland Dow High School at the time. And he had invited me to go grouse hunting with him and his dog. He's got a Vizsla. So I took him up on the offer about a year later and went with him several times and then decided, I really love this sport. I would love to get my own dog. So I got my German short hair pointer, Timber, and just really stuck with it. So I had some great pointers from him. He gave me a lot of tips and tricks to work with Timber on my own as she was really little. And he also recommended somebody in Michigan. I took her to a professional trainer for 2 sessions where the trainer worked with me to learn how to train her on my own time.
Nice. Very cool. What's kind of how long is this? How long's the grouse season in Michigan? Grouse and pheasant.
Grouse is September 15th through firearm season, which starts November 15th. And then it opens up again for late season on December 1st. So it's open now again.
Okay. And then that
goes. Opens later September. So it's I think usually the September 21st through November 6th this year.
Yeah. So are you going to be getting out a lot still until the end of season, or are you thinking off-season training? What does that look like for you?
No, I'll definitely be getting out this late season. Late season grouse is actually my favorite. I really love the reassurance of seeing the tracks in the snow and knowing that you're in the right cover. And it's great for a new dog as well to know that, yeah, she's picking up their scent and following their tracks. That doesn't always mean that there's going to be scent on the ground, but it's nice to have that reassurance when you can see their tracks in the snow. But we're actually going to get out this weekend and I'm going to hunt with my buddy Brent that I just talked about in the Hillman area. So I'm pretty excited.
Nice. Yeah, the track thing today, we have a good amount of snow here in central Wisconsin. And when I was out with Django today in the middle of the day, I'd get all excited because there'd be grouse tracks everywhere. And I'd be, walking and following him. And then Django just looks bored as hell with where we're walking. And then I slowly realized, like, these aren't fresh tracks. Like there's, I could follow
that's a tough call.
I could follow these tracks forever, but it's not going to get us anywhere. And then we get on a set where he was much more excited and attentive. So then I knew. So luckily with our dogs, their senses and abilities far exceed ours when it comes to knowing how fresh something is out in the woods.
Yep.
So what does off-season training look like for you then? So I've had a previous guest of mine, Christina Mott. She owns Washera County Vet Clinic, and she has a side company known as Canine Athlete, and she specializes in off-season training for working dogs, hunting dogs, show dogs. And so I've been, just with my background in strength and conditioning, fitness, I've been geeking out about designing Django's off-season training protocols from like a fitness or a CrossFit standpoint. So how do I increase his strength, upper body, lower body? How do I increase core strength? Looking at orthopedic injuries for Springer Spaniels, how do I go about designing something that's hopefully going to decrease his risk of injury? And then also, working on the hunting component of it as well, but not going overboard with that, considering going into this this is my first bird dog, but going into this season, I was like, it's a longer season. It'll go forever, but it like flew by. And now, here I am. We've got like a month left of bird hunting, and I'm pretty sad about it, but also excited that I can start looking at that off-season program. So what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I've been seeing some of your posts and stories on social media and about that topic that you're talking about, and I think that's really interesting. I'm curious to see what you come up with in the future here. But for me, off season looks like I'm conditioning myself and bringing timber with me. So I do a little bit of running when it's not below 0 temperatures outside and there's not ice all over the roads in northern Michigan, but I do that and I take Timber with me. She runs off leash, so I'm sure she runs 2 or 3 times farther than I do. It'd be interesting to know exactly how far she runs compared to how I run. But I just get her out in the woods as much as I can. Work on ranging was the big thing this past summer, just to keep her closer to me no matter what situation we're in. Because like I said, the first season she would range off pretty far, and if she flushed birds, it was way too far for me to do anything about it. So that really helped this hunting season, just having that work with ranging and keeping her closer. And I don't have to call her back nearly as much. She just comes back because she knows that she's supposed to be a little bit closer, and she checks in a lot more often. So she's always in visibility, and it's a lot less time of my hand on the e-collar remote than relax and enjoy the hunt with her. So that's been really nice. But I'm really fortunate with her. I don't have to do a lot of scent training or anything with her at this point. She's pretty well locked into picking up scent and tracking, and we go and we hunt together. So that's been really, really nice. She could use a little bit more training on holding steady. Grouse. Woodcock, she does great. Grouse, she gets a little too close for comfort on some of them, but it's hit or miss.
Nice. I need to shadow someone with a pointing dog, because I'd be interested to see the woodcock thing, because with a flushing dog, I just watch as my dog like damn near grabs him out of the air, because sometimes like they'll sit and I'm like, I think that bird's in that spot, and he'll be like right up on it before it decides it needs to fly away. And I've seen a couple of them try to run, but they're not nearly as fast as a grouse. Like I've seen them chase grouse, but they're way faster. Like woodcock they're kind of awkward to watch run around on the ground.
Yeah, I have not been fortunate enough to see one run on the ground. They're usually in pretty thick cover where I'm finding them, but.
And then it was crazy this year. I'm marking a spot where I wanted to come back and check out for deer hunting, and Django flushes and I hear his bell go off, and he flushes a bird right at me, and I just move out of the way as it flies. It would have, ran right into me, and that woodcock landed. It had to have been within 10 feet from me, but as soon as it stopped moving, I couldn't see it. It would take a couple steps, and I would see it, and it would stop, and I would blink, and I would lose it in the grass. It was crazy.
It's amazing, and obviously that's the reason that they hold so tight. They're confident that they are very well camouflaged. I just told my coworker this story this morning, but there was a woodcock that Timber had pointed, and I walked up, it flushed. I had a great shot, I thought, and it went down. We were going to retrieve it, and she does not retrieve birds every time at this point. She'll maybe point a dead bird, so I'll know where it is, but sometimes she retrieves, sometimes she doesn't. I'm not really sure what makes her want to bring it back. But as long as she points the location, I'm happy. Anyway, she was pointing this bird, so I was walking up. I saw it a couple feet in front of me, reached down to grab it, and it was a totally different live bird.
Oh,
it flew out of my hand and scared the crap out of me. But yeah, it's just they are so confident in their camouflage that they will hold until you literally step on them or grab them.
That's insane. Yeah, I always end up at least stepping on 1 or 2 early season archery on my way out, and it gives me a heart attack in the woods. It'll be pitch black, and it's just the flight of their wings as they flap into my face.
Yeah.
Uh, and maybe Ryan can chime in at some point too on this question. But when you were saying about retrieving birds every time, because there's like a few places I'll read where people will say, "Oh, you can't teach a pointing dog to retrieve," and because then it's counter to what you're trying to do to train them with pointing. But I find that to be a fairly silly idea, because it's like the dog can tell the difference between when a bird's alive and when it's doing its hunting job, versus when a dog you are instructing a dog to go retrieve. So that I guess your input from pointing dogs, because with Django, he like grouse, pheasant, ducks, he'll grab that stuff every time. But yeah, woodcock, for whatever reason, at probably maybe 50-50 or maybe even more than that, he might pick it up and then he just puts it right down. Like, he does not. And I've heard from a few people that most dogs don't like the taste of woodcock for whatever reason. Like, the smell is crazy, but yeah, for whatever reason, he's not a big. He'll go grab a woodcock and then spit it right out and just stare at it. So.
Yeah, I think you're right on when you say that, and Ryan can speak to this too. But his dog Daly, she's a German short hair pointer that's 8 years old. She will retrieve woodcock, but he's said a couple times that she'll bring him back, but as soon as he's within sight of her, she'll drop him because she doesn't want to carry him more than she has to.
Yeah, that sounds very similar to my dog.
Yeah. Timber has picked up a couple woodcock and she didn't seem to care or mind the difference at all versus anything else, but she's pretty new to actually retrieving the birds. Whereas Ryan's dog Daly, she'll retrieve ducks, she'll retrieve grouse, pretty much everything. She's a pretty fantastic dog, and I hope Timber gets to that point too.
Nice. Awesome. I got sidetracked thinking about I want to go woodcock hunting. I
Right?
missed it already.
Those little guys.
It was crazy too here. I don't know how so like when they were migrating through that last week to 10 days, it was crazy. We'd go out, and in an hour, if you didn't hit a dozen birds, it was a slow day. And then the last day of season, we went out and I forget exactly how far we went, but I think we put up 2 birds that day. The last day of season, it was like someone flipped a switch. But yeah. Woodcock hunting's a blast.
So the last day of the season for us, we already had a couple inches of snow on the ground for a couple days, so I thought they were gone for sure.
Oh wow.
So we were targeting grouse, and surprisingly, we ended up coming out with a good number of woodcock that day instead. We flushed them all over, and we're like, well, they're still here in the snow. I can't believe this. But yeah, we were lucky. We had them right up to the last day of the season here.
I like it. So we're talking about off-season dog training. What does off-season you training look like? How important is your physical fitness, your physical capacity going into hunting, and then now that the hunting season is for most part more than halfway over, we're in late season hunting. What does fitness look like for Sarah?
It's pretty important to me, and I have a lot more time to dedicate to it in the off season, of course, I'm sure, as anybody else does. During hunting season, I'm not as focused on the fitness aspect because I'm getting a really good workout just hunting. Deer season, I'll walk into my spot where I'm going to sit and hunt for firearm season, but it's still quite a workout just to get where I'm going and get all the gear there. And then, of course, bird season, I'm walking miles and miles and pretty thick, nasty cover. So I'm exhausted after that. But for fitness in the off season, I really like to take care of my body and make sure that I'm in a good state for hunting season. That's not my main motivation always. It's not specifically for hunting, but just for me. I just want to be fit and in shape and be able to handle any situation I can by myself. I have to. If I don't have to, great. But if I do, I want to be able to drag out my own deer and handle that.
Yeah. With where you live now, is most of your training done at a gym, at your house, outdoors? What does that look like?
I did work out at a gym for a while, but I really like to be able to work out outdoors if I can. So here where I live, I have access to public lands within a quarter mile of my driveway, which is really nice. So I literally run to the two tracks and the state land that I want to be on. It feels a lot nicer and more remote than running down pavement or neighborhoods and stuff like that. I've got a lake. I've got plenty of lakes here, so I have a lot of opportunity for fitness opportunities on public lands outdoors. So I do a lot of running. I'll do some mountain biking. I do a lot of paddle boarding, which is a major workout if you've never tried it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we love
My
the
dog
water
likes me for
sports.
all of those.
Where we live in Point, we live right off the river, so spoiled with paddleboarding, kayaking, canoeing, all of the things. I should have done it more this season, but just floating the backwaters in the river by us and jump shooting ducks, and I didn't
That's
do
nice.
enough of it. But yeah, I hear you. As much as we can, swimming and trying to integrate that, the outdoor spaces we enjoy, we love, into the fitness program.
hmm But I really like as I mentioned before, I really like the weight training aspect of fitness now. So I'll do a little bit of running, and a little bit to me means anywhere from 2 to 6 miles. 6 is pushing it for me. That's a little bit of a longer run.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that mile range. And then I incorporate a lot of hill workouts where I'll do some intervals up the hills. I throw lunges in, burpees, and I even do some weighted pack hikes as well. I'll throw 30 pounds of sand in a bag and hike around with that. And that's a pretty good workout and just really easy and free.
Nice. And what else do you do for weight training other than the sandbag?
So when I was going to the gym, I do CrossFit style workouts when I have access to that equipment. I really enjoy that type of workout. It's intense. There's a lot of variety, which I really like. And I like the muscle volume that you can get from consistently doing those workouts as well. Currently, I have some weights in my home that I use, and I'm not doing CrossFit style workouts in my home because I don't have great space for that. But just focusing on more of a bodybuilding style training, focusing on the different muscle groups and doing some weight training for that.
Yeah. Get jacked and ready for beach season and hunting season. I like it.
Yeah. And it just makes me feel better about what I'm fueling my body with too.
Yeah, for sure. With hunting for you and your fitness, your health, how big of an aspect does the food play into it, your nutrition?
Oh, it's huge. So when I started CrossFit, I've always been pretty conscious of what I'm trying to eat and fueling my workouts and stuff, especially when I was a runner. But more so when I started with CrossFit, I became a lot more, say, dedicated to that type of paying attention to what I'm putting into my body. So I looked at Whole30 and followed those programs for a while and was amazed at what you can find in products that you're buying from the grocery store. Even canned foods and stuff, they'll have preservatives and chemicals that you're not wanting to put in your body on a regular basis. So for me, hunting and harvesting your own food is just the best way to know exactly what you're putting into your body and not having all that extra additives and chemicals going into your body.
Mm-hmm. What's your favorite recipes for we'll start with birds. So top 3 recipes. If you want to do one for each bird, that's fine too.
Yeah. I actually like to keep it very, very simple for a majority of them. So woodcock, I absolutely love the flavor of them. Some people don't like them. I guess they would have a stronger flavor than, say, grouse. But I really like them. They've got great dark meat, so I don't like to add too much. Just a simple salt and pepper seasoning, and I'll either bake them for 15 minutes on a roasting pan or in the oven, or just throw them in a frying pan for a couple minutes and sear the sides, and you're good to go. However, I have done some recipes where you actually bake them with the innards and everything inside, which sounds a little off-putting to some people, but very clean bird, so you can do that with woodcock amazingly.
Yeah. I was telling a few people locally, with a few of the ones I had, I'm like, yeah, every time they fly, supposedly they'll exhume their bowels. So every time you bump them or they fly away, they're taking a deuce out in the woods. So yeah, they're all of the French recipe. I have a. Or do you follow Stephen Ranella or Meat Eater at all?
Yes. Yep, I do.
So the French cookbook he talks about in Scavenger's Guide to Hot Cuisine, Escoffier, French chef way back in the day. He's got like an entire chapter devoted to wild birds and the woodcock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a big fan. Like every recipe is roasted whole, and then they either like chop it up and you eat the bones and the innards and everything. And a couple of them you roast it and then it's like pressed into a paste and they eat it on toast. So yeah, there's yeah. I've not eaten there. I've cooked up the guts for the dogs and they've enjoyed it, but I haven't gone all the way to eat all of the insides.
Yeah, so I did not. I cooked the birds whole with the innards inside, and I did not eat all of the innards. I'm not really excited to eat the stomach and what looks like worms inside the bird. But I do eat the heart and the kidney and the liver of the birds.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah, I've had stomach, tripe, all that stuff, but it's got to be somebody else has to process it. Like it needs to be in a sausage, then I'll eat it.
Yeah, where you're not actually having to see what it looks like.
Yeah, I'm perfectly okay. Someone be like, "Oh, that's stomach," and I'll eat it because it smells and looks amazing. But yeah, if I'm gutting it and then someone's like, "I'll just go cook that," I'll probably pass.
I definitely understand that.
Yeah, I've nicked too many deer stomachs in my time gutting them to be like, yeah, let's eat that. But all right, so we've got roasted. How else do you?
Yeah. So I've used this for both pheasant and grouse before. Again, I really just love the simple, light seasoning and keep it simple so you're actually getting the flavor of the bird. But this recipe was pretty good too. I did a rosemary and pear oven roasted recipe for pheasant, and I've done it for grouse, and that was incredible. So if you're looking for something that will give it a little more additional flavor, and maybe you're introducing somebody new to a game bird, I think that's a great way to go because you're not entirely masking the taste of the bird, but you're giving it just a little additional flavor.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, that one was good.
What about deer recipes? What is your go-to?
I guess I keep everything pretty simple. Actually, just about an hour ago tonight, Ryan cooked up a really awesome venison beef broccoli, however you would call that recipe, and it was really good.
What was so it was venison steak and beef steak, or?
It was just venison, but what you would get, like what you would order as a beef broccoli dish, it was venison broccoli.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. So like a venison garlic broccoli pepper. Okay.
Yeah, that was really good. Yeah, there's not very many cuts that I would like to, I don't know, add too much to. Mm-hmm. Actually, this year was my first time learning how to process a deer without giving it to a processor. So that was a pretty cool experience. And I have 0 ground meat or burger from that deer, which is awesome. I never knew that was an option growing up.
Yeah, I saw you canned a bunch of it.
I did. I canned some of the scraps. So some of the scraps from the rib meat that were cut off the rib bones and other scraps from roasts and stuff, just cleaning those up. I canned those cuts of meat. That ended up being about 10 pints of meat. And then everything else was cut into steaks or roast.
Nice. Yeah, I've never made canned venison, but I've had it. A few of my friends make it, and it always turns out awesome. Like I love it. You can just throw it over rice, throw it over biscuits, noodles, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's freaking awesome. I love ground meat too much, so I always end up grinding all my scrap, either with a little bit of pork fat or Newski's Bacon here in central Wisconsin. They do like a big end of the sale bacon ends discount bulk sale, so I'll buy that and I'll mix like 80-20 with a little bit of Applewood smoked bacon ends
That's an awesome idea.
Oh, it's phenomenal. I always tell myself I'm gonna make canned venison, or I'm gonna get like snack sticks or sausage made. But I always end up just doing that because it tastes so good with
That sounds good.
anything you make it with. It just tastes it still tastes like venison, but it's just got that little bit of smoked flavor, and then it's got a little bit extra fat in it from the bacon. But
that's awesome.
Anyways, I could talk about food all day.
Yeah, me too.
There's actually a wild game event coming up here at the university. A friend of mine, Trevor, he's putting it on, but they're going to break down a deer and then make a bunch of different dishes from it. So that's pretty cool to see that kind of stuff.
Right on site there?
Yeah, right on site.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is that through the chapter or?
That's through, I believe it's through the Becoming an Outdoors Woman program as well.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, it's kind of his capstone project he's doing through the university. And
wow.
Yeah, I'm excited to see him share all of that with people.
What an awesome capstone project. Mine was showing a poster on how the species or how the ecosystem in Yellowstone changed from the reintroductions of wolves, but I would have much rather gone.
Right? Showing everyone how to break down like a couple pheasants or something, or a deer.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So with hunting, BHA, being a badass chick, have you that's the conversation that's being had right now in the bigger world of hunting, the R3 movement, no, I'm blank. I always retain, reactivate, and what's the new hunting?
I honestly should know what it is. I think it's, do you know what R3 stands for, word for word?
It's
recruit, reactivate, retain.
There you go.
Yeah.
Recruit, reactivate, retain. So as a BHA board member, you're training your own dog, you're deer hunting, you're badass. What does your mission look like for getting more women into hunting, or just people in general? I assume though that for you get like a ton of questions from other women, like, how do I get into this, or you're crazy. What does that look like?
Occasionally I do, but it's something that I've been passionate about ever since I had the, I guess, resources to take other people out hunting. So I've been doing that for quite a few years now, just one-on-one, taking new hunters out that were interested. If they said, oh, that looks like it was a lot of fun, I'd really like to try that. So I make it a point to set up a time to actually take somebody out and introduce them. Whether they stick with it or not, I don't always know that, but I've been fortunate to assist with some of the Learn to Hunt programs a couple years ago, and currently recently as well. So I've seen small groups of new hunters get their hunter safety education and actually be trained in how to hunt their first hunt. So that's been really special and unique. But with my current role, as a board member with Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, I see a lot of opportunity to host larger events and really get some more people out there.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically women, of course. So I've helped with co-ed events and stuff, and I think those are great, but there are a lot of women that just feel so much more comfortable in a setting where they're around other ladies and not being, they just might not be comfortable learning or getting that experience with both men and women.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Here in Point, there's a like the local food scene is huge in Stevens Point. The farming, farm to table, seasonal local food. But that world, now that I'm getting into it more from the health and fitness standpoint, the hunting standpoint, so few of them know how to hunt. Their exposure to hunting is very minimal. None of them grew up doing it. There's a few here and there that have, but so it's been interesting to take a few of them out, kind of talk to them about hunting, show them how I hunt, and then I realized just how poor of a teacher I am because I've been raised in it. I grew up deer hunting, rabbit hunting, And so it's kind of just like, you just do these things. And then when someone comes with you who has never been exposed to that world, they start asking you these questions and you're like, oh yeah, you have to stop and think about it. And it's a little easier with bird hunting. I've taken a few people out this year that want to get a dog and kind of want to start that whole thing. And it's easier with that because I never had a bird dog growing up. So it's much more new or fresh, or like I've had to put way more time into how I approach it, how I approach learning about it. So have you experienced any of that with the new people you take out, kind of like having to stop yourself and slow down your thinking? And
Yeah, I don't want to say that I haven't experienced that. I think from previous jobs that I've held, I've been in an atmosphere where I was teaching something new to people. So I carry that into that experience, I guess. And with anything I show somebody, I try to explain why we're looking for those things. Like, why are we looking for tracks, or why are we looking in this cover? And it seems like I answer a lot of those questions before they come up, but it's always humbling and refreshing when somebody does say, well, why do we need this? Or what are we doing this for? And I'm like, oh, I guess I didn't think about the point that you don't realize that, or you don't know that because you're a new hunter. I enjoy those experiences when they do come up, but I feel pretty good about my teaching for new hunters and new experiences in general.
Nice. Excellent. Yeah, I can show people the orthopedic side of things, like fitness, strength training, injury prevention, rehab. And the few people I've taken out this year, and maybe it's just it's the few people I've gone out with, it's literally like no outdoor exposure. Like they go outside and they're like, oh, well, we walk on the trail because that's what you do. And so then when you take them off the trail and they're like, this is where you have to walk. Like, yeah. And then I stop. I'm like, well, this is where wildlife lives. most things don't live on the trail, or, and something I've taken upon myself to learn more, because even I've been, the last year or two, I've realized just how ignorant I am of the bigger ecosystem. So like tree identification, not just it's an oak tree because it has acorns, like being able to actually identify other species, and prairie species, and kind of the canopy. And I've gone out with people who, like, that's what they do, that's what they went to school for, and so I can learn from them when we go out hunting, so I'm not just completely oblivious to my surroundings. So yeah, it's just been it's been an interesting year of growth when it comes to looking at the bigger system, not just hey, this is the forest, we take from it, and all we care about as hunters is the game species. So just being more aware of the bigger picture has kind of been my goal for this year.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point to make for anyone that might be considering taking out a new hunter too. I feel personally that I grow myself in hunting skills every experience that I take a new hunter out. So I think some people have this fear that they're wasting a hunt, or they're gonna lose experience or something. That's not always the case. Like, sure, you might not be successful on that very first hunt or two that you take new hunter out, because you're taking the extra time and maybe not getting to where you would if you were by yourself. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for stepping into those experiences and just taking a step back and being like, oh yeah, I guess I didn't pay attention to the cover that I was looking into earlier, or I didn't notice all these other tracks when I was just looking for deer tracks or something like that. Scouting new areas and stuff. So I think that's a good point.
Nice. With how big is the BHA board for Michigan?
Our board members, we have 10.
We
10
have
currently
15 seats, but we have 13 filled right now.
All right. How many other women are on the board, on the Jedi Council?
On the Jedi question. We actually Courtney Nicholson was the female on the board, and she actually moved back to Colorado.
It's Amber.
And then Amber Casey who has served pretty much just as long as I have, for a few years now, and definitely looking to add more.
Yeah, just
Got a few
the
in
two of
mind.
us at the moment.
Well, that's the Wisconsin board only has one. I should look that up quick just to make sure. But yeah, that's something I find so, like you both said, you're looking for more. It's it's a responsibility. There's kind of for that role. But when I went to a political, it was like a political meeting talking about the Land and Water Conservation Fund a few years ago here in Wisconsin. When I went there were all of these other conservation organizations there, and it was just all dudes, like all dudes. And I was probably the youngest by at least 2 or 3 decades. And I was there through BHA, and that was a few years ago. And now, the Unleaded Cast and Blast, the Artemis Group, you with Michigan BHA, and Elizabeth with Wisconsin. It's cool to see like the inclusivity, getting actual, like getting women involved, because for the longest time, that it's just, we suck. Like that, I don't know how else to say it. But yeah, for you, what is has there been any hurdles, been any obstacles, or growing up, did you get, I don't know, like who were your role models, or what kind of spurred you to take on this leadership role?
So first off, I have to say my mom, because she faced a lot of those hurdles through her growing up in her career. She chose to be a conservation officer for her career, and in that day and age was just not very seen at all for a woman to go through the police academy and become a conservation officer. So she did that up until the point that she was pregnant with my siblings and I. I've got an older brother that's a year and a half older, and then I'm a triplet. So she was pregnant with triplets and had to resign from being a conservation officer at that time, just for obvious reasons. But yeah, she kind of paved her own path with her career after that, and just went an unusual route. But she's definitely been my role model, and just picking up for herself no matter what, and doing whatever it was that she wanted, regardless of gender. So that's been a pretty cool role model to have. And then, yeah, I have to say I have not really faced many obstacles. I mean, I've never felt ostracized for being a woman on the board or being a woman involved in conservation. There's been times where it's been made a little bit obvious that maybe I'm in a bit of an unusual spot. So maybe I'll be hosting an event and I'll go pick up a tool that, like a chainsaw or something, and then the men in the group might be assuming that I wasn't going to actually cut down trees. But so that's always an interesting dynamic of it. But yeah, I've not really had any major hurdles, just because I don't think of it as something unusual, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, nor should you. It's just, from my experience, just you go to these meetings, it's like, how do we not have more female representatives at these meetings? And then, you just realize it's like, just people are dumb, like I said, and it's only recently we've been getting more female leadership in these roles, especially in conservation, and it's awesome to see. Like Elizabeth Baker, I don't know if either of you know her from the Wisconsin BHA board, but she's a board certified podiatric, so surgeon. Like, it's crazy. So it's those kind of leaders, and you're a badass as well. Just those the leadership that the two of you offer for conservation is pretty awesome. So yeah, I was just curious what other females were on the board for Michigan BHA.
Yeah, it's just Amber and I holding down the fort right now. And Amber Casey, she's another awesome badass lady. She majorly helped me host the women's weekend here this year as well.
Nice. So what else do you have planned for BHA, for conservation, for spreading the hunting story that you're creating? And maybe you don't want to get more people into hunting. Maybe you want to keep all of your spots for yourself. But what are what are your goals?
I'm always probably a little bit too willing to share. I mean, spots because I have scouted them and put time and effort into finding them, but they're also public land. So if it gets somebody new out there and have a good hunting experience, I'm more than happy to share that. I don't even have to know who that person is. If they're just like, hey, I'm going to be up in northern Michigan at this date, like where are some good places to go? I'm happy to give away my best spots because I know that there's still going to be great hunting there no matter what. And if it encourages somebody else to get out there, I'm all for it. If I can be part of that experience and take somebody out, great, even better. Yeah, as far as plans for BHA for next year, I'm planning to host a couple more events. There's some things that aren't really finalized yet, so I don't want to get too far in and talk details or dates or anything yet, but I am absolutely going to host another women's weekend of some sort.
Awesome. Talking about, exactly what the women's night conservation, what do you think are going to be some things that we need to do, just so speaking from hunting, BHA maybe, or hunting in general, to get more people involved in hunting? Because the Wisconsin numbers were out this year. I looked a little bit at Michigan, and the Michigan killed more illegal elk than we did this year, so I took that as a win. But our numbers were down. We sold, I forget, it was just around 2% fewer tags. Harvest numbers were down, but that is more about kind of the timing of hunting and the weather. The weather sure was crazy. But what are some things that BHA members maybe we need to be doing better in our day-to-day or seasonally? Because that's something I always ask myself is, what is something I can do other than, sharing the social media posts or donating money or my time for, work days. But I feel like those things just benefit, the land and my ability to access it or hunt. But like, what can we do on the day-to-day to hopefully get more people involved into hunting?
Yeah, so from my perspective, I think the habitat work days and the cleanups and the access stuff, that's extremely important to keep those opportunities available. However, I think the mentorship side needs to be a little bit stronger for a lot of these organizations, including BHA. And, we're hosting a couple of events where we get new hunters introduced, but then what do they do? They maybe have a few connections that they can reach out to hunt with, but I think if we had some programs developed or opportunities, like a second mentored hunt or something for that group of members, then it would probably get them out a little bit more. I think one introductory mentorship maybe isn't enough. So that includes the women's weekend I hosted. So for those ladies, we were able to equip them with fly fishing rods so that they could continue fly fishing after the event. However, many of them probably didn't because they didn't have somebody to go with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that mentorship side needs a lot more strength.
Yeah. It might not be, but as someone who didn't fly fish growing up, I've dabbled a little bit this year, and I feel like that has a huge barrier to entry for someone who's might not have done it before. Like someone who fished growing up, I've hunted for however long. Yeah, getting into fly fishing, I'm like, wow, this is going to be its own thing. Overcoming kind of the barrier to entry. So.
Yeah. Even like a gear maintenance type thing, like that's not something that's really taught in a mentored hunt, I don't think. So somebody's line breaks, they're like, well, I'm not going to use this now because I don't know how to fix it.
Exactly. And so before we get to kind of like our concluding thoughts for the episode or what you want to leave people with, I want to hear more about your mom. She sounds like a total badass. So like, do you have any favorite hunting stories, outdoor recreation stories, life lesson stories that you're willing to share with people?
Oh my goodness. How do I narrow that down?
You can go with the top 5 if you want.
So I don't actually have any hunting memories with my mom. She does not hunt. She's supportive of myself and my siblings and my dad hunting. But she herself is not a fan. And I think that comes from her time as a conservation officer where she had to see a lot of wounded animals and illegally taken animals and stuff like that. So she's not a fan of actually going out and killing an animal. But yeah, I have a lot of memories with her on public lands. Her and I have encountered some pretty major backpacking trips. So my favorites will be the Grand Teton Mountains in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Her and I did a 42-mile, 5-night, 6-day backpacking trip, and she carried just as heavy of a pack as I did, which was about 42 pounds or so. And she was just a badass. This was a couple years ago, so she was over 60 at the time and just killing it.
Wow.
I think I learned a little bit more about the 8+ miles a day than she did, so she definitely had me beat. And we crossed what's called Paintbrush Divide, which was a major goal of ours for a couple of years. There were a couple of years in a row that we went out there and we couldn't get across that because it was still closed due to ice conditions. And this particular year it was open but not deemed safe, and she still wanted to do it anyway, just so that we could cross it off our list and get through it. And she was a lot braver than I was, that's for sure. And we did it. So it was a really beautiful experience.
Damn, that's awesome that you were able to do that with your mom and that she was that fit. That's
she's very fit.
Patrick Durkin just I don't know if you're familiar with him from Wisconsin. He's an outdoor writer, but he just put out an article through the Mediator platform about kind of that cutoff that people have for not only hunting but outdoor recreation in general, and it being right around 50, mid 50s. And it's so cool to hear your mom in her 60s out there hiking 42 miles, you said?
42-mile loop, yep.
Yeah, 42-mile loop in the Tetons. Like, that's badass. So kudos to your mom. You
just us and the Grizzlies.
Yeah, right? So and that blows my mind that she's it kind of blows my mind, but I can see why she wouldn't be inclined or want to go hunt and kill things after I'm sure she's seen a lot of terrible stuff doing in the conservation kind of in her conservation career. For you though, what can you think back and remember the first animal you successfully killed?
Yeah, so it was 2008. That was my first buck that I harvested. And I had been hunting for years with my dad, like I said, and hunting that firearm season, in a blind with my dad unsuccessfully. We hadn't seen anything at all. And then he and my mom had an appointment. They had to go somewhere for that day. And I was like, well, I'd still really like to hunt. So I got to go sit out in the blind by myself, and that I made it happen that day. I couldn't believe it. The buck came in. I was well prepared for the opportunity. I knew exactly what to do, where to shoot, everything like that. Had a great shot on the buck. It was just behind the shoulder blade, which is where I was taught to shoot for the best shot on a deer. So it was a heart shot for that animal. It went about 30 feet and dropped, and I immediately texted my parents and said, "You're not going to believe me, but I actually got a buck." And they didn't believe me. So they send a picture. They're like, "There's no way you actually got a deer without us." And sure enough, I did. It was a nice 6-point buck, right off of my parents' property there, where I pretty much learned how to firearm hunt, and had to deal with dragging it out and waiting to learn how to gut it later. But at my first harvest, I was a little bummed that I didn't share that experience with my dad, but pretty cool that I was able to do that on my own.
Yeah, for sure. How old were you?
I would have been 17.
17. Did you have any negative thoughts about it? What was your mental space?
I don't ever feel great about killing an animal, but I know that it's because I'm gonna utilize the animal and eat the meat, and it's not being wasted or anything. But I'm not excited to go out and just kill animals or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I was grateful.
Yeah. Have you ever had a conversation with your mom about why she doesn't like hunting? Or
Yeah, I've had a few, and it's always the same response from her. She just feels bad. She feels really sad, and it's just not for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I respect that. I respect that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So other than 42-mile loops in her 60s, you got anything else for us any other stories for us?
Oh gosh, I've got a lot of stories, but that'd be a whole nother podcast, I think.
There you go. That's fair. So with that, with our concluding thoughts, what do you want to leave people with listening to the podcast? Most of my audience is health and fitness minded, but there's definitely a growing number of people that enjoy listening to the hunting episodes, and I always get it's like a seasonal rotating audience of people, because I do little like seasonal chunks of hunting or fitness or food, farming. So what do you want to leave people with? It can be about anything.
Yeah, I've got a few thoughts. So, these are just plugs for other programs probably, but there's oftentimes when I was doing CrossFit and my job improving wildlife habitat, I thought, man, it would be really great to get some actual CrossFitters out here doing this work, because it is hard going out and building brush piles and moving trees and logs. And I think that some more CrossFitters could really dedicate some time to the wildlife habitat improvements in that way, and also get a great workout out of it. So just put that thought in people's minds. And then also, if you're not currently eating wild game for part of your nutrition, I think it's a great time to start. There's a lot of resources out there to get into hunting if you're not already. Backcountry hunters being one of those amazing resources. And yeah, don't be afraid to just jump into it if you're a new hunter. I mean, you had mentioned this as well, but Timber is my first bird dog ever. I had zero experience with hunting dogs before her, and I think it turned out pretty well, and she's only 2. So don't think just because you don't have the experience that you can't get into something new like that.
Awesome. I love it. If people want to reach out or follow you, is there any platform that you would send them to?
Sure. So you can follow me on my Instagram, which is Triceratop3. So that's TRISARAHTOPP 3. That's where I post a lot of my content, is on Instagram, and on my Facebook as well, which should just be Sarah Topp. So Sarah with an H and TOPP.
Awesome. And I'll make sure I get that in the show notes if my phone ever cooperates.
I can send that to you on a message also.
Perfect. Awesome. Anything else, Sarah, you want to cover, talk about, share with people?
No, I think that's it. Other than, if you're not a member of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, join up.
Oh,
Obviously,
yeah,
got some
definitely.
here.
Definitely. I completely forgot to plug that at the end. Couldn't agree more. Does Ryan want to throw anything in, since he's in the background probably drinking a Michelob Ultra?
No, it'd be a Michelob. What's that favorite over there in Wisconsin, Minnesota? It'd be the.
No one drinks that over here. You're the.
You don't drink the Michelob Golden Lights?
No. Not, or at least not in my circles. No one. When I remember seeing you hand me a bottle of that, and I was like, "What is this?"
That's right.
That was my first one. That was my first one. Here it would probably be Coors Light, or there's a Natty. What is it? Natural
Ice.
Natural Ice, Coors Light, or a Busch Latte. Those would be like something comparable here, of like just, low calorie just.
Oh man, those aren't even in the same league as the Golden Light. Minnesota, everybody from Minnesota is gonna like message you now and be like, "Don't you ever mention Natural Light and Golden Light."
Like in the same sentence, how dare you? That's fair. Ryan, you got anything for us?
No, I mean, I guess like if you do have a lot of people that might be interested in getting in the outdoors, or even kind of finding a protein source on their own, such as going out hunting small game, or even stepping it up to like deer hunting. I mean, make use of technology and Facebook groups. Groups like say Project Upland, for example. It's a small game, mostly bird hunting community, and on their Facebook, they're starting to pair willing mentors with mentees, and Facebook takes you through its own process of that. So that could be a way to kind of get your foot in the door, get the dialogue started with other people who have been doing this and using hunting as fitness as well, not just as a source of food. But I would really suggest people to just kind of go down that rabbit hole and look at different ways of technology and just getting out there and finding people that you can drive with, that you feel comfortable with, to take that jump into the outdoors, or a different way to recreate too. You know, getting out of the gym, going up and getting your ass kicked in the back country of Wisconsin. You know, I mean, I always tell people, you know, Wisconsin kicks my ass up when hunting more than anywhere. Like red briars, the jungle grass out there, it's just ridiculous. So,
oh man,
a lot of fitness that goes into bird hunting.
Oh yeah, for sure. I love it. Thanks, dude. He's like the Wizard of Oz back there. You can't see him on the camera, but he's just dropping dropping some bombs on us. I love it.
It's probably a good thing though. I mean, like, Sarah's a lot better looking than I am, so
yeah. No one argued. Did you hear that? There's no one.
Crickets. Heard crickets.
No, Sarah, thank you for coming on. Ryan, I'm glad you were in the room. I'm sure at some point I'm gonna hit you up for a podcast because you're both awesome people. I love talking to BHA people, just kind of, you know, shooting the shit and talking about all the things I enjoy, because more people need to hear the stories, hear the messages, and put faces and voices with the names they see on the website. So it's been fun, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Man, it's great to talk to you.
Awesome. I'm gonna stop the stream, and then yeah.